Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're looking at the ransom of Jesus Christ, and why mankind needed something like that. So, as we all know, Adam and Eve sinned in the Garden of Eden, and judgment was passed in Genesis chapter 3, verse 19. Now, this judgment didn't just sentence them to death, but all of their descendants, as we know from Romans chapter 5, verse 12. So, the question is, why was Jesus needed as a ransom, and what's the ransom for in the first place? Well, we can see it this way. There was a sin, and justice had to be served based on that transgression, which ended up being the death that I had previously mentioned. Now, when that judgment was passed, Jesus would have obviously been present, along with some other angels as well. But God still wanted his righteous ones to, at some point, live before him forever. And Job, thousands of years ago, even said that there would be a time where the righteous would be resurrected to live before God, in Job chapter 14, verses 13 to 14, and Job chapter 19, verses 25 to 26. However, after God pronounced that judgment in front of all those witnesses, and as a matter of principle, as Malachi chapter 3, verse 6 says, he can't just go back on what he pronounced in the presence of many. God doesn't leave room for his subjects to blaspheme, as that 2 Samuel chapter 12 verses 13 to 14 account says, when David sinned against God by committing adultery and murder. Nathan said unto David, The Lord also hath put away thy sin. Thou shalt not die. Howbeit, because by this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child also that is born unto thee shall surely die. So God can't just reverse the judgments to keep the righteous before him forever. So an atonement had to be made. And what is an atonement? Well, an atonement is a payment for an offense. Kind of like debt being paid. You can see it like that. In the ancient Israelite times, the high priest would offer the blood of animals to atone for the sins of the people for that year, according to Hebrews chapter 9, verses 6 and 7. However, it had to be repeated yearly, because, in reality, the blood of an animal, or even a regular human being, doesn't equal the perfect, sinless, untainted life that Adam held, as Genesis chapter 1, verse 31, and Hebrews chapter 10, verse 4 tells us. And there's also Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 21 as well. So there would have to be someone who also had a perfect life that could atone for such a sin, for the righteous to live forever. Something like this, but on a smaller scale, actually happened in the Bible. In Numbers chapter 25, the Israelites committed immoral sexual acts with the Moabites, while also worshipping their gods. Just as the original sin, this sin required judgment, and that came in the form of a plague that spread quickly amongst the people, killing thousands. However, while this was going on, a man named Phinehas, a priest, personally killed an Israelite man and a Midianite woman who were sleeping together in a tent out of righteous anger. God Almighty took this as a sufficient atonement, and the plague ended. Now, we can apply what happened here to the original sin. There was a judgment that was passed, but an equivalent atonement could atone for that sin, often called turning God's wrath or anger away in the Bible. As we know, that atonement, ransom, or sacrifice was Jesus Christ, a man who was not born out of intercourse and did not sin till the day of his death, as 1 Peter 2 verse 22 attests to, making his human life perfect, as Adam's was. Jesus Christ, after he was resurrected, was able to go back to heaven with the evidence of the atonement in the presence of all the spirits, and the anger of God, you could say, was appeased, as was said in Hebrews chapter 9, verses 22 to 24. And almost all things are by the law, purged with blood, and without shedding of blood is no remission. It was therefore necessary that the patterns of things in the heavens should be purified with these, but the heavenly things themselves with better sacrifices than these. For Christ is not entered into the holy places made with hands, which are the figures of the true, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God for us. So, with that, God can resurrect his beloved righteous ones without going against his own judgment with the ransom of Jesus Christ. And that, my friends, is why Jesus Christ needed to die. But that is the end of this video. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support my channel, then you can hit the like button, subscribe button, and that notification bell so you can be notified of when I post again. Have a very lovely day, and I'd love to see all of you soon.